Hey everybody, this is Paul, and today I'm going to show you how I move a 3-year-old El Grullo. Now the reason why is I'm relocating all my red flesh to a different part of the yard, all the red flesh varieties, and also this potting soil has turned to garbage after 3 years. It's mostly composted forest products. So I want to repot it for a nice, healthy, fresh dragon fruit plant, I guess you could say. So let's do it. So you can see, I like to first tow it to this spot I'm gonna carry it to. You can see it's a lot easier, or a lot harder than it looks, I should say.
How many have you moved so far?
Too many, I don't know, probably 30. But this is one of the larger ones. Here we go.
I feel like I should help you.
Nope, you cannot intervene today, Scott. Now the key is that, or I guess the best benefit is that the top of this trellis is interchangeable. I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. Okay, so here's where I'm gonna relocate it to this trellis. You can see it's nice and sturdy. And what I'm gonna do first is I usually break apart the plant.
It's like breaking glass.
This is another drawback to using these barrels that people use online, or I was using online, is after 2 years they turn really brittle.
Yeah, it's like glass almost.
Yeah, it's like it's UV damage from the sun.
Damn, looks like fun. You could hire some kids to break this up, man. They'd probably love it.
Yeah, it's a labor of love, I tell you. So what I'm doing is I'm getting a nice root ball off of these different cuttings here. And then certain ones, like the big long one, the oldest one in here, I'm gonna have to let it be. But there's 2 I can pull apart rather easily, 3 actually.
So you're just trying to extract them and get each individual branch kind of apart from each other.
For these smaller ones, but the larger one I'm gonna have to leave on the trellis, and that's kind of the secret or method to my madness, I guess you could say. So rather easily, not too worried about saving that many roots because
that one didn't go very far down, huh?
Nah, this one's only a year old, but it
okay.
actually broke a lot of the roots off, you could see. And then I just remove as much of the old potting soil as I can.
Because this is the Fox Farms.
Yep. Well, it's also Kellogg palm and cactus mix.
I thought that was an interesting point where Gary was talking about Fox Farms being used for marijuana growers, where they turn their plants over every year.
Every year, or even any plant. A lot of the plants in potting soil in different parts of the area, they just throw them away at the end of the year.
Right.
So yeah, in the long term, it's not the best. So there you go. That's basically what I do. If I wanted to, I could probably spray out all of this soil, but these dragons are so resilient. That's about all I do. So I'm gonna repeat that process here on this one now. And the other 2 are gonna be a little bit harder. So I have to be much more careful with the largest one. So again, I'm just breaking apart the roots to get a nice sized root ball. Careful of the spines. And there we go.
Yeah, I mean, people need to understand you're learning too. You're not, everyone has their learning process and you make mistakes, and that's what's part of the learning process. So
yeah, I mean, I thought this trellis was a good design, but in time, if you look, it gets heavy, it gets weighed down. And so that's why I'm actually gonna show you is now I'm putting these permanent trellises in here. You can see the amount of concrete I use. This thing's not going anywhere.
right.
So much more sturdy, and I prefer that over this method for.
And the cost is pretty much the same. I mean, it's not.
Yeah, it is about the same. Concrete's not too bad. The rebar is expensive.
And you have to buy these little pots here.
Yeah, it's hard to source these. And the labor involved in cutting them. Next step is now I like to start cutting these off. Makes it easier to get the plants out. Okay. And this is where it gets a little tricky because I have 2 more plants in here and they're both rather large. One is about 3 years old. Let's get out the smaller one first. And this one's really spiny too, so you gotta be really careful. And now at this point, the epiphytic roots have really attached themselves to the, what do I call that?
Post.
No, this stuff. The
Burlap.
Burlap, there we go, sorry. So I'm gonna pull it apart. Oh no, I already damaged the plant. So this is gonna be harder than you think. Let's see what I could do. So in this case,
cut them?
I'm actually gonna cut them.
I just cut them.
It's just they're way too developed. That's actually the first time I had to cut the epiphytic roots off of one of these. And you gotta be really careful because this is so spiny. Sometimes you do have to just take cuttings off. In this case, move that one. This is impressive. Usually it's much easier. You don't want to do this if it's going to be raining in the next few days. You don't want the plant to have some dry weather to kind of recover, because this is rather traumatic, and I don't even water them for about a month after this, unless it rains. And that's why I like to do it during the winter time. Some people in our group on Facebook asked why I do it this time of year is because it's when the sun's farthest away from our part of the world. It's actually the winter solstice today. And that way, the plants just have time to recover before it starts getting to be really sunny and warm in our climate. So there we go. And this was just a cutting that I cut a few years ago. There we go. And I'm gonna give that to a neighbor. Okay, so now that I have the largest plant by itself isolated, I tend to cut off some of these zip ties here so I can get it and reuse this trellis. So there's about 8 of them, and you'll see why I do that in just a moment. There we go. Okay, so I've left the last 2 on, and then now the tricky part. So I really don't want to break these 2 branches here. It's really long. So there we go. Make sure I can pull it out. I cut the roots with a shovel. I'm making sure I have a nice sized root ball. Now, separate it. Hopefully I won't lose any of this new growth here. And now, I'm going to reuse this trellis top and the rebar for a new trellis. So I get to reuse a lot of these parts.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with them.
Nope, it's still good. Okay, so now, carefully starting to get better at this. There we go. This is one of the larger plants I've moved. And the spine here.
Yeah, that's got some gnarly spines.
So, let's be really careful of this part, especially because this plant's so heavy.
Okay.
Leave it like that. And get off as much of that old potting soil as possible. That's the key. And these plants, you know, it's only December, so by April, they're gonna grow a lot of new roots. That's not supposed to happen. There we go. So in time, they'll grow plenty more roots and just be fine. Again, some people would probably recommend that I spray this old soil out with a hose, but as long as I get the majority of it off, I think it's just fine. So as you can see, it's just about all roots. I've removed quite a few there. I mean, you can see there's so many roots still in the pot, but that's okay. Dragon fruit will grow new roots, no problem. So now the most critical step and the most dangerous step is to get this guy into the pot. And so what's cool about our trellis here is that this top can be reused. What I mean by that is that it should fit right on top here, just like the old one. And this is stuffed with concrete and rebar, by the way, so it's never gonna need to be moved again, hopefully. It's gonna get to live the rest of its life here. All right, you can see here, Scott, that's what happens when it's not perfect. You can see a little bit of damage here on this branch.
Yeah, it'll bounce back.
But it did not damage the core. See how this metal went through it?
Yeah.
That's not a problem. We'll be able to readjust this in just a minute. I did keep some bamboo poles on this branch to keep it stable, and I'm glad I did that. And what's amazing about dragon fruit is you can manipulate them so easily. So even though I have a nice hole on this branch, I can move it around carefully. It's gonna be just fine. Now I need to just adjust this top to make it balanced. And there you go. So let me get this situated, let me get the other two in, and then I'll show you how I repot the pot. And that should be the last step. So there you go. I just need to finish tying it up, and we added plenty of potting soil, so new fresh potting soil, similar to Gary's best top pot, kind of make it my own ratio. And you can see how many holes I like to put in the bottom of the pot. So the reason why I use pots is because we have tons of gophers in this area. And so there's a concrete pad that's at the base. So that's in this area. And then the gophers can't get in these holes. So plenty of roots will go into the native soil, and that's kind of the objective now, and it will have excellent drainage. In addition, I like to layer about 2 inches of perlite. So I use perlite at the base of the pot now, because I've had really good results in the past doing that. So there you go. That's kind of how I like to move these really large dragons and repot them. Put the sign on it, clean it up a bit, and call it a day. So there you go. Give us a like and a subscribe. Thanks for watching. Have yourself a wonderful day. Take care.